Hey, well, hello, my brother. How you doing?
Pretty good. Yeah, doing all right, man.
Oh, yeah?
We've been having the robust discussions lately about all these climate change issues, and
This video discusses our opinions about the policies of climate change and how they affect the public. Is climate change meant for everybody or just those that can't afford it? What things are more important than climate change?
Well, let's talk about it because we've been doing this for a little while, and sort of the goal was two engineers talking about it, and let's see if our opinions from where we started have changed at all.
things have to be done about climate change. But I think the urgency of it is, and so I don't know if it's going to make much of a difference if we try to do these things so quickly. I think it's something that we need to do about it, but go about smartly because they say like haste makes waste or whatever. Just doing things too fast, and I think it is a very important issue. But some other things are more important too. So we need to also consider about other issues such
Other
as
priorities we have.
other priorities such as like we'll need as the population goes up. The obvious things is we're going to need to provide for enough water and food for everybody. Those are our most pressing issues. So those things should go ahead of climate change.
Because when we started, you were like, "Oh man, I'm a big climate change man. And we're all going to die in 10 years." No, you didn't say that,
Yeah.
but I mean, you were.
You said that. I didn't.
Well, I said
Yeah.
some people were saying that.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Some people were saying that. It comes about to me that there's a smart way of going about these things. We did a past video about the cows and the methane, like how maybe we shouldn't eat meats. Well, like we could do rotational grazing, free range cattle. At the same time, we could have meat substitute kind of products,
Yeah.
that reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but proteins from algae or other sources.
Yeah.
But so there's smart ways to go about it. I don't think there has to be these drastic changes, but if we strategically do these smart solutions and just kind of work into it, I think it'll work out.
Right. I think it's unfortunate it's become too political, and that is a bad thing because science and politics don't mix very well. And so anytime a politician can see something and grab onto it to gain more power to get reelected, that's something politicians like to do, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm not talking about any one particular party, but what I'm saying is that science should be an independent thought thing, not a political thought thing. And so I think sometimes it can be a scare tactic, and I don't like that part of it. So I still think that I agree with you. We need to be smart about it. And some of the things they're proposing in the government, in the last several years, seem to be a little drastic, and that it's going to cause more harm in its wake than solve problems. And so you have to say, okay, well, yeah, if we get rid of gas and all oil and gas here and there, I mean that's going to be great. But what problems is that going to cause? And are those problems going to be worse than the problems we're solving? I think that they're going to be worse if we get too drastic, like you're saying. So, to me, I mean, when you talk about priorities, for me, there's a poverty situation around the world that I think we need to address. And I'm a believer in free enterprise and capitalism. I think that creates more wealth for all people involved, so that the poor still have more resources and funds, even though they're in the poverty level. But you increase the wealth for everybody. Everybody raises up. So poor people in a rich country are still better off than poor people in a really impoverished country. And so that's one way to help save lives. I was looking at poverty levels and stuff, and we talked about this before, but poverty was going down in the USA quite a bit, and now it's going up a little bit. But the amount of people that poverty kill, amount of people that die from poverty around the world is a staggering event. It's hard to put your finger on it because, well, okay, they might have died from this or disease or from that, but those rates are higher among the impoverished because their resources are limited. So to me, it's a big problem. So when you think about climate change, it's almost like an elitist, sort of rich person's problem, because a person who's poor isn't going to care about climate change. They can't give any more than they're given already. How are they going to reduce more? Because their goal is to try to live, the next day, right? And I'm not trying to be too drastic about it, but even in our own country, we're probably one of the richest nations in the world, right? Maybe if the richest. So in this country, 2/3 of the population live paycheck to paycheck right now. Okay, and that's a staggering number considering how rich of a country we are. So, do you think those 2/3 of the people are concerned about reducing their carbon emissions, or are they concerned about, hey, can I pay the electric bill or have enough food, for next week or things like that, right? So that's what their concern is. That's their number one concern. It's not, oh, did how much waste did I have this year, and can I reduce it or whatever. They got very little of that. So and then when you go to other countries, it's even worse. Is what I'm saying. So for us to preach to everybody and say, hey, climate change is the most pressing need we have. Well, tell that to 2/3 of the population in this country, and probably say 80% of the world population. They're not concerned about that from day to day. They're trying to survive, and so when you tell them to reduce, they're kind of confused on what we're actually asking them to do, because they really have no flexibility there. The rich have flexibility, the elite have flexibility. And that's another problem I have with all this, is that it seems like there's a lot of hypocrisy out there. Okay, have you ever noticed that those that are pounding their fist the hardest and screaming about climate change don't seem to want to make the changes on their own personal habits? Okay, I mean, maybe some do, and there are some out there that are true believers and they make changes. But when all those people go to those climate change summits and they fly around in their private jets and they talk for a while and hey, and then they fly home, are they setting the proper example, I guess, for us to follow?
I think the only way they could do it, this is in the Bible though, but I think this is the same thing. Basically Jesus, there's this rich man came to him and says, I've done everything I can to do. I've done all your teachings. What can I do now? And he says, well, sell all that you have and follow me. So, I mean, I'm not saying that, it almost seems it's that kind of a problem. Like they would have to really drastically change their lifestyle. So, they would have to be something like that,
Well, yeah, and I think if you had people that would set the proper example and pave the way, like, hey, I'm going to, stop flying in an airplane, by half this year. I'm going to try to organize my work schedule, do more Zoom meetings, and I'm going to figure that out. Or if I'm in the government, let's say you're in the cabinet members and stuff that are flying around all the time doing these meetings, can they announce, hey, here's what I'm doing to reduce my carbon footprint? Or if you're the president, whatever. If you're the, if whoever you are that are saying we need to do this, as long as you're willing to sacrifice some yourself, I think that would go a long way for other people to say, hey, they're doing it now. Maybe I can, help out a little bit. But when they say, no, let's legislate to make everybody do this, because I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it, or whatever. That seems kind of, I'm not quite a true believer yet. I'm not bought into this yet when I can't see people really taking it seriously yet. So there's a problem there.
I also see it as far as something for the average person. You're talking about the poor people, but this also affects people with businesses too. We were talking about ESG ratings and all that. I think it's something that's important because a lot of these people are going to have to do their business based on climate change. And so if they're not aware of all the different regulations that are going to go on, the reporting your GHG emissions and all that, and what they can do, now they're going to have to totally adjust their business to fit the pressures that they have on that, and we've kind of seen some of the repercussions of that kind of going on already. But I think it's something that we need to be smart about. Maybe not put so much emphasis on certain things that the ESG would have you do, but be, like my brother was saying, there's kind of a double standard there, because if you're a manufacturing company, it's harder to keep up with the environmental regulations. But if you're a company that takes some of that raw material or product that was done by a manufacturer, you just assemble it, then you're at a different standard than someone else, but yet you're judged the same. It's easier for you to do your ESG, keep up with that and stuff. Yeah. So
that's right. So we got to think about our future generations too, and as there's more and more people on the planet, they're consuming more and they're emitting more carbon. So that's just naturally going to happen. And so, we have to try to think about their welfare and their well-being, but also, their, in a sense, climate change, so that their future is protected, but also their life is protected. They need to have a life that's without fear, without total restriction, without all kinds of things that might come with an over heavy burden on them for addressing only climate change. That's the number one thing. And so what about the wars and pestilence and food shortages and water shortages and what about shortages of jobs? All these things like that. The grid going down, the transportation. There's a lot of things that we need to focus on and work on, along with climate change. I think we should give them a lot of attention as well. So I would put it maybe number 10 on the list, but I wouldn't put climate change in the top 5 right now, just for me. But I still think it's important. Yeah. Well, the last thing I think that is important in all this perspective is that I think that we're trying to lead the way in a global effort to reduce carbon emissions, which is a good thing, because if the world is not doing it all together, then it doesn't really matter. I mean, we're one country, and even if we reduce all of our emissions, I mean, as far as the world's concerned, that's not going to help really prevent carbon emissions from going up. It's unlikely that anything's going to change unless everybody does it at once. And so, otherwise, some countries will take advantage of it over other countries, and they'll just try to economically win out. All right. So anyway, yeah, I think we've hopefully you've learned a lot. I've learned a lot. Hopefully, all of you have learned something too. And so that we just wanted to update you on sort of where our thought processes were as we debate these issues. And so we'll see how it goes in the next few months.
All right.
Cool.
Sounds good.
All right, so we bid you adieu again, and until next time. We're the Climate Change Brothers, and we debate all things climate change and engineering and agriculture and stuff like that. All right. Yeah.